Oh no, it's not. That's an old one.
Yeah. So let me just if I go from here, okay, go directly to the link.
Okay.
I'll type
Open
now.
it in your thing though. Yeah.
Is that the live right
That's
there?
probably it. No, that's the old one.
Okay.
It might come up now.
No, that's
That's last week. Give me a flavor for a second. That's actually. Nope. Go back to that. Close that app and go back to your link.
okay.
Did you close the app first? Close the app. There you go. Now go back to your link.
Link.
Give it a second. So it says live now, so we should be able to go there. Live now. Yep, there we are. Yep.
Second. Wait. Well, look up the camera for a second.
There's a delay.
There's a delay. Okay.
There's a considerable delay, so
Okay.
if you try and watch it at the same time, you're going to be very annoyed.
Okay. Very good.
But it is working good.
Very good. Okay.
I think it would be nice if you did some half an hour on some prayer.
Yeah. No. I mean, just sort of like kind of typical stuff that I do. So yeah. Good. Okay.
Beautiful.
All right. Good. I need monkey. You're up here. Do you have this? Yom Ha'atzmaut.
Yeah.
Yom Ha'atzmaut. Yom Ha'atzmaut. Yom Ha'atzmaut. Yom Ha'atzmaut. Ut. Atzmaut.
My Irish brogue.
After that.
Test it.
I'm just going to do the first, like up till here, and then do it again. Come on up. You're lighting candles, no?
La 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 la. Okay, you're gonna sing along with me this time. Ready? Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya 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 la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya 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 la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya That's going to be very important tonight. Several times. A very important piece. Shabbat Shalom.
May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of the synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May the synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. Shabbat Shalom. It's wonderful to gather tonight, celebrating two opportunities to get together as a community. Many of us were just here for our almost annual, maybe every other year, Mazon Soup and Salad Shabbat. And many thanks to Barbara and Vicky and Rhea and all who brought soup and salad to feed us and to nourish us, and also, more importantly, to help raise some well-needed funds for Mazon, a Jewish response for hunger. And tonight, this is the second of our Shabbat Koleinu programs. We do these periodically throughout the year when there are 5 Fridays in the month, where we feature special music of our tradition, and in this case, special music of one of the treasures of our congregation, Cantor Steve Richards. You might know Cantor Richards, that he and his wife Margie have been part of our community unofficially and officially since they moved down here from Northern California a number of years ago. Had the pleasure of sharing the bima with him during Cantor Davidson's sabbatical. What you might not know is that he is one of the Reform movements and one of just Jewish movement's most extraordinary composers. And tonight, Cantor Davidson and Cantor Richards will be singing a lot of their music and featuring his music. So we are thrilled to have you here, Cantor Richards, and having two cantors together to share will be amazing. Now, you might know his wife, Margie. And you might say, where's Margie? Why isn't she here tonight? Well, it's because she is recovering from ankle surgery, basically ankle reconstruction. So I want everyone to do something for a minute. Everyone turn around and look up at that camera right there, okay? Because we're live streaming. Say, Shabbat Shalom, Margie. I hope you can watch this. So normally I say, please fill the sanctuary with your voices. Do the best you can, because there will be a lot of new music tonight, but just like the melody that Cantor Davidson sang before, lots of opportunities to lie and yadidai and whatnot, and or just sit back and enjoy the beautiful music that you will hear tonight. As we continue our service on page 121, it's my pleasure to invite Sharon Gross to lead us in the blessing of the Shabbat candles.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled lights, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle the light. We sing it together.
Yeah, we'll sing it together.
Oops.
It's getting so close. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik shel Shabbat.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with his mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the lights of Shabbat.
Amen. Shabbat shalom.
You can tell that the air conditioning is on, by the way, so. Invite you to please turn to page 123, and please stand if you are able as we join together in singing Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam L'chaim.
Before we continue, and while you're still standing, just take a moment to reach out to the people nearby and wish them Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
How about you? Shabbat Shalom. Better than yesterday. No.
You know what page it's on? Okay. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Cantors. Exactly.
You can be seated. On page, I'm going to mess you up a little bit here. On page 634, this is Israel's day of light and joy, a Shabbat of rest, traditional Shabbat song, melody, part of Rosemary wrote, Yom Zeh Yisrael, page 634.
Shabbat u'modim lishmor bechol shanai laroch lefanai maset ve'arucha Shabbat menucha Yom zeh leYisrael ora ve'simcha Shabbat menucha. Kitosh berakto, oto mikol yamim, וששת חילי טוב מלאכת עולמים, ומצאו אדומים, השקט ובטחה, Shabbat menucha, Yom zeh leYisrael, ora v'simcha. Shabbat menucha, Yom zeh leYisrael, ora v'simcha. Shabbat menucha.
On page 138, we welcome the Sabbath bride, as you do each and every week, with this poem, these words of Lecha Dodi. Beloved, come meet the bride. Beloved, come greet Shabbat.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, enei Shabbat nekabla. Lecha Shabbat מחשבה תחילה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בעורף ומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
You can be seated. The first Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat help to count the days of the week as we get to Lecha Dodi. And then the next psalm after that, Psalm 92, a special psalm for Shabbat, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, a psalm, a song for Shabbat. In the middle of the page, on page 140, we see these words: the righteous bloom like a date palm, they thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in the courts of our God. We want every day to be like Shabbat, and the beauty and the righteousness the people and the place and the presence of Shabbat can offer. So we offer this gift on Shabbat, Tzaddik Katamar, in the middle of page 140.
Tzaddik Katamar Yifrach, Keres Balvanon Yizkei, Shetulim Levet Adonai, Bechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu, Tzaddik Katamar Yifrach, Keres Balvanon Yizkei, Shetulim Beveit Adonai, Bechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu. Koleinu
Baruch Hu is on page 146. Please stand if you are able.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai la la la, yai lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai.
On page 148, together let's share a prayer for the evening. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tsevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ari aravim. On page 150, again we join together, sharing our love for the gift of Torah. Together, everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed.
Please be seated. Continue on page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
At the top of 157, standing on the parted shores of history, we will still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get there from here to there except by joining hands and marching together.
Let's join together tonight in the words of Hashkivenu in English on page 161 in the middle of the page. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. As we turn to page 162, Cantor Richards has composed two beautiful melodies, one for Vishamru and one for Yismechu. The Yismechu melody was the one that we began to learn at the opening of tonight's service, and which we'll invite you to join in with us when we get there. And this beautiful Vishamru we begin with now as we thank God for the gift of Shabbat.
You can sing on the Vishamru too.
Yes, of course.
There's a la-la section right in the beginning.
Continuing with the Yismechu at the bottom of page 162. Yismechu ve'malechutecha shomrei Shabbat ve'korei oleh Aham mekadeshei shevi כולם יסבלו ויתענגו מטובך והשבי רצית בו וקידשתו חמדת ימים אותו קראת זכר למעשה בראשית. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג, המקדש שבי כולם ישמחו ויתענגו מטובך, והשבי רצית בו וקידשתו, חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה בראשית. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג, המקדש שבי כולם ישמחו ויתענגו מטובך, שבי רצית בו וקידשתו, חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה בראשית. All right, let's hear it for Bob on that one. Right. He deserves it.
And maybe for something a little more familiar right now. On page 165. Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you. As we prepare to enter into the tefillah, the central blessings of our Shabbat worship, we'll do some that's a little familiar and some that's a little different or takes us back a couple years ago when we used to share the whole tefillah together. We will chant the first three blessings together as we typically do, and then for the rest of the tefillah, many of the prayers will be sung by Cantor Davidson and Cantor Richards. We'll be able to receive with the joy and love and the essence of those prayers as well. At the end of the formal prayer, we'll have a time for silence as well. So I invite you to please stand if you are able as we enter into our time of tefillah together.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufiyani tehilatecha. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufiyani tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who praise you every day, blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Please be seated.
Prayer for Thanksgiving. Modim anachnu lach.
winds and tides, its sunsets and seasons. Modi manach mulam. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and bereavements. Modi manach mulam. We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Modi manach mulam. Modi manach mulam. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha, ulecha
And of course, we pray for abundant peace. Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Lamcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim, Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol Shalom, Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim, Tasim Leolam. Baruch atah
Let's take a few moments for our own silent prayer and reflection.
May my deeds do no harm, let them be true and kind. May I be wise and grateful for my gifts.
Give me strength when others wrong me, and let me humble when I succeed.
Open up my soul to your Torah. Open up my heart to do your will. Petach libi.
Open up my soul. Open up my soul to your Torah.
Petach libi.
Open up my heart. Open up my heart to do your
Petach libi.
Open up my soul. Open up my soul to do your Torah.
Petach libi.
Open up my heart. Open up my heart to do your
Take a few moments now. We take a few moments now to turn our thoughts and prayers to those who are in need of healing, healing of body or mind or spirit. In just a moment, we will pray the words of Mishaberach L'Refuah, our prayer for healing, which you can find in the middle of page 371 if you need the words. But before we lift our voices together, if you'd like to stand for a moment and share aloud the name or names of those for whom you are praying this Shabbat, I invite you to do so now. Thanks. Judith. Pepe. Eve. Thank you. Steve. Kathy. Ria. Ellen. Thanks. Ria. Lean. Thanks. Thanks. Randy?
Margie Richards, Malka Batchaim.
Tamar Badluga, Jalen Watson, Margie Richards, Andy Cochran.
Joyce Kahn. For all those we've named and those whose names we hold in our hearts, we pray together.
Blessed are you, God, whose healing spirit is with all those in need. Amen. When I first came to Temple Beth-El 22 years ago, one of the first things that I needed to do, other than about 10 B'nai Mitzvah in the first month and a half, but one of the first things that I needed to do was prepare our choir and prepare myself for my first High Holy Days. One of the first pieces of music that I was introduced to, having not grown up in the Reform movement, was Cantor Stephen Richards' Ritze. And I fell in love. I fell in love with this incredibly unattainable vision that I had of this master at work. Then I went to some conferences, got a chance to know my wonderful colleague, and got to know that he truly was a master at work and a gift and a treasure to our movement, with all of the beautiful music that flows through him. When we had the opportunity to create these Shabbatot Koleinu, these Shabbatot of our voices, celebrating the different and varied and many voices that speak to us through prayer, through our music, through our liturgy, I immediately thought to myself, what a blessing. I'm so lucky that Cantor Stephen Richards is part of our community now, because I want to celebrate him and his music as one of our Shabbatot. And truly, the three Shabbatot Koleinu kind of look like this, in case you hadn't figured it out yet. The first Shabbat Koleinu focuses on either an era or a style of music. This year, we celebrated the Sephardic tradition. The second Shabbat Koleinu, this one that we're in right now, celebrates the treasures in our movement, the treasured composers of our movement. Perhaps not the composers that we're so accustomed to hearing anymore, because some of their music is written for choir or written for a more formal setting. And while we are very fortunate that we do a lot of varied music, many of our Reformed congregations are not doing such variances in music in their services. And then the final Shabbat Koleinu, which we will have the last Friday in June, just a little bit of an advertisement, will celebrate the new voices of Jewish music. And that Shabbat, I will have the pleasure and honor of sharing this bima with another wonderful colleague, Cantor Natalie Young, who is one of the new and rising voices and composers in the Reformed Jewish movement. So I've asked Cantor Richards if he would share with you briefly a little bit about his inspiration and the inspirations behind some of the music that he shared with us this evening and that we have shared with you together. And because I know some of the stories, Bob now knows some of the stories, but y'all don't know some of the stories of where these pieces came from or who they were commissioned for or written for. And so please welcome to the Amud Cantor Stephen Richards to share with you a little bit about his music.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I didn't have a lot of warning that I was going to have to speak tonight. But I got to tell you that there are really four criteria that come to mind when I'm about to compose a piece of sacred music. There are the words, there's the music, there's the tradition, and then there's the clergy element, the idea of making it accessible to the congregation, making it welcoming to the congregation. And so in creating a piece of music, I have to balance these elements. For me, the primary focus when I start to compose a piece of music are the words. the words, so many of our pieces that we sing in a service, the words and the music don't match. We pick music because the music is good or the congregation likes the music, but it doesn't happen to fit the text. With me, that's paramount. That's the most important thing, is to make the music really fit the meaning of the text. And more today, our congregations really want to participate in the music, so that the clerical element, the idea of making it something that's accessible to the congregation, is very important. I think all the music that we did tonight really focused a lot on that element. It's something that you may not have been able to sing with the first time you heard it, but if you heard it again, you'd be able to sing with it. And in terms of the music, it's interesting. There, many of the things that I set are not necessarily original tunes. I was telling Ilan and Bob the story of the Yismaku tune. A number of years ago, I was on a trip to Israel, and Jordan had just opened up the borders. And so the tours to Jordan had just started. And so I went with a group of educators, and we went on a tour. And in the capital city, in Amman, we were stopped at a nightclub that was pretty close to the hotel that we were in. And I heard a singer with an oud player doing, and I said, that's a great tune. And I excused myself, went back to the hotel, and had a sheet of newspaper and notated it down very quickly, and that's the tune I used for the Yismaku. That Yom Zel Yisrael that was a setting of a tune that was an English table song. And it was introduced to me by Judith Eisenstein, who her father was Mordecai Kaplan, who founded the Reconstructionist movement. And she was married to Ira Eisenstein, who at that time was the president of the Reconstructionist Union. She was a wonderful teacher. I just loved her at Hebrew Union College, but she introduced me to that English table song, and I said, I've got to set that. It's actually, the setting is for cantor and choir and keyboard. When you get to be in my situation, you have a lot of grandkids. I've actually got 15. And a lot of these grandkids have bar and bat mitzvahs. And there's a tradition in our family that every time one of them has a bar and bat mitzvah, I write a piece for them. So a lot of the pieces that you heard tonight were written to celebrate a bar and bat mitzvah. That Ritzay was composed in 1982 for my oldest son's bar mitzvah. He's now a professor of music at the University of Florida. The Shalom Rav that Cantor Ilan sang so beautifully was composed recently for the installation of Emma Golden Lutz as the cantor at Stephen Wise Synagogue here in LA. It was written about a month ago. And so that's where a lot of this comes from. Thank you for being here, and thank you for responding so well to my music.
And thank you, Stephen, for choosing to be a part of this community, and also to always share with us not only your voice and your talent, but your beautiful neshama, your wonderful menschlichkeit soul. And every time you and Margie come in for Shabbat, I light up because I'm just so excited to have you as part of our community. So thank you for being a part of this Shabbat and of every Shabbat that you are here for. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Bunky Victor, representing your board of directors this evening. It's my pleasure to basically say many thanks to the Sisterhood and Elaine Jimenez for hosting the Oneg Shabbat tonight. We have a lot of great activities coming up, and we hope to see you at many of them. Last chance to reserve your place at our community Passover Seder on April 11th. Rhea Zaks must receive your reservation form and payment by Monday. That's this Monday. Forms are located in the brochure rack by the elevator. Our next Taurus lecture featuring Dr. Lori Levinson is next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Be here at Temple Bethel if you have paid for your ticket, and if you haven't, then please contact Shoni in the finance office. And finally, please mark your calendars for our upcoming Yom Ha'ot Mat celebratory concert on Saturday, May 6th. I know. The concert will be held at Bethel, Temple Bethel, and a potluck dessert reception will follow. This will be a wonderful night for celebrating Israel's Independence Day. Although there is no charge for the concert, we do require reservations so that we can plan accordingly. Please RSVP directly to Zarika Sorkin, and she's here tonight. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, I know, I just saw her.
I was like, she's not here. There you are. Hi, Zarika. Must have been sitting when you came in. Just a couple other notes. I'll just take my own privilege to thank Cantor Richards for being here tonight on the Bima and just really sharing just such beautiful music with us. I know that the Ritzay is probably the most familiar piece that kind of takes us back to the High Holy Days, but to just share such this wealth of inspiration and knowledge and contributions to the musical elements of our tradition is just a great blessing for us all. So thank you. And thank you, Cantor Davidson, for creating some beautiful melodies with you and Bob to really create extraordinary music tonight. Thank you. Just if you want something different musically tomorrow night, talk to Cantor Davidson or talk to Randy and Bruce Ross. It's the last of the salons. What's the formal name? Because I'm going to say what I shouldn't say. I'm going to say.
I can't even remember.
What do we? You want to say it, Randy? What do you call it?
It's
The salon concerts, right?
I call it the alarm.
I know, that's what I was thinking too, the Alon salon.
I don't like to lose.
But I wasn't going to say that. So the music of Alan Sherman tomorrow night. Talk to Randy or talk to Cantor Davidson. And just also, those of you who don't know Lori Levinson, she is professor at Loyola Law School here in Los Angeles and director of an extraordinary organization called the Project for the Innocent. You actually may have read about her 2 or 3 times this week because the work of her and her organization has helped to free people who have been incarcerated wrongly for any number of reasons, and she's a real social justice hero. So we hope that you'll join us this Wednesday at 7:30 for Lori Levinson. Our concluding prayers begin on page 586 with Koleinu. I invite you to please stand if you are able.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשינו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כמוהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
seated. On page 593, in nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love we are comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. Before we join together in reciting Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 598, we take a moment to remember those who have died in recent days or in years past. If you're remembering someone this week when I recite that person's name, please stand and remain standing until all the names have been shared. Then together we will stand as a community to share the words of Mourner's Kaddish together. We're in the period of Shiva, the first 7 days of mourning for Sid Weiss, beloved husband of Sheila, father of Lisa, grandfather of Eli Joe. We continue to observe Shaloshim, the first 30 days of remembrance for Barbara Cohen, and the first year of remembrance for Adele Wallach. We also remember those who died at this season in years past, whose Yort Seitan fell this past week, and whom we remember by name tonight. Reba Adler, Isidore Almas, Herman Bernstein, Abraham Beyer, Victor Cohn, Michael Colton, Beverly Deutsch, Harrison Dyke, Lee Garden Swartz, Samson Ginsberg, Harris Greenberg, Henry Gross, Martin Jake Gumbiner, Joseph Hirsch, Sylvia Kaplan, Bessie Konigsberg, Archie Kramer, Dave Kramer, Luke Kramer, William Robert Monshine, Melvin Moskowitz, Alex Paul, Bertha Schultz, Doris Schwartz, Becky Shahan, David Silver, Dr. Bob Sloves, Fran Taylor, Maureen Tyson, Susan Weidenfeld, Helen Wilson, Ethel Weiner, Jacob Whitkin, Janina Zelinsky, and Gussie Zinner. If you're remembering someone this Shabbat and I neglected to share the name, please stand and share the name aloud or get my attention. Or, thanks. Gloria? Thank you. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. Please stand if you are able as we join together on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayei chon uv'yomei chon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agalal v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei d'kudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran birma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen.
Amen. We can all reach out to each other.
Got an announcement? No?
And we're going to share in this, this wonderful melody of Yismachu, for which also Cantor Richards added Oseh Shalom, so that we could use it to close our service tonight. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עומק העם מקדש השמי כולם ישמחו ויתענגו מטובך השביעי רצית בו וקידשתו חמדת ימים אותו קראת זכר למעשה בראשית. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עומק העם מקדש השביעי כולם ישמחו ויתענגו מטובך והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו חמדת ימים אותו קראת זכר למעשה בראשית. ומלכותך
שומרי שבת
וקוראי עומק. Shabbat Shalom.
Nicely done. Nicely done. I follow Bunky to the middle of the aisle here. We'll say Motzi together.
Come on, get
And
down
Cantor
there.
Richards has
There's hungry people.
created a nice melody for Motzi as well, right?
Exactly.
Everyone touch the challah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz Shabbat Shalom. B'teavon. Shabbat Shalom. All right. Bob definitely earned it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.